It's November 2014 and the big guy upstairs unleashed one of the biggest tidal waves since the Neolithic. Update 1.9 has arrived with the force of 10 stepdads and blew everyone's already high expectations out of the Red Sea that everyone was unknowingly submerged within. The feature list wasn't massive, but the little amounts of additions it had was endlessly dense in potential. The newly improved servers are demonstrating their undying supremacy by successfully shrugging off the emerging typhoon of levels all the way from the 9th circle. Yes, they did indeed used to work at some point. Also, you can play Skrillex. This is a graph, and this is where you are right now. Welcome to humanity's peak. The community is progressing at an astounding rate, breakthrough after breakthrough resulting in what was jaw-dropping becoming a mere triple bogey in only a few months' time. The pathetic pile of formless goo that we know today as Viprin actually made levels with his own slimy hands. The current Geometry player base was approximately 18 months old. It was fucking great. Most, if not all, of the levels being released at the time were complete shit, but nobody cared because people couldn't hear our perpetually virginal, persistently pragmatic pessimism over all the fun they're having. And also because it's 2014 and they're not time wizards. All they know is that they're in a giant party bus that is currently traveling at give or take 188,293 kilometers an hour, a vehicle that is apathetic to the community's hurricane-like conditions and plows right through the clusterfuck with zero given. The bus is whizzing and jizzing all around the place, and the driver is the community. On the rack and search for the status quo of the future. This periodic phenomenon, which I dubbed 15 minutes ago in the shower, is the Great Scramble, and it lasts a few months every update. It's one that is currently looking very familiar as we've recently returned to this uncharted territory once again after 7 brutal years of crushing tedium. After nearly a decade of waiting in the Nidosphere's deathline, witnessing something as gloriously stupid as geometry lobotomization feels like an endlessly deep euphoria. However, half a year from now, the honeymoon period will come to an end and we'll realize again that the scramble doesn't last forever. Once the waves settle and anarchy subsides for good, people realize again that the levels that they bluntly threw together in an afternoon while waiting for Adventure Time to resume programming weren't the masterpieces they thought they were, promptly purging them from memory as they're silently laid still in the depths of the servers as a product of their time. The only people who are aware of their existence are too busy paying taxes to inform the new generation of them. Natural selection making it so that basically everything made outside of a few stone cold classics might as well not have existed to begin with. However, there is one level from this since forgotten era that if you pause at just the right moment, you'll witness an artifact more emblematic of its time than no other. Blue Marine is a level that sets the scene right away by flinging you into the sky immediately without a second thought. It doesn't have to sucker you in by placing some build-up bullshit before everything really starts. It knows you're gonna go again. There's a whole snake of garbage in your way. You die a few times to the aggravating mess that the dickhead who made this thing put in front of your face. It's alright, you go again. You're past the jungle gym to witness an uncharacteristically tight wave which you're surprised to find is actually quite manageable. There's nothing separating you from mastery aside from an army of horizontally aligned clubstep monsters that successfully take you out. No biggie, you go again. A hard transition into a 600% speed increase out of nowhere thrusts you into a gravitationally frantic UFO chamber that you almost instantly crash into, ending your run right there on the spot. You go again. You spend the next 10 minutes very slowly attempting to lock down the pattern because this part was made by Saddam Hussein. You go again. Passing the prehistoric Horn Tower cave brings you to what looks like clubstep if it got a hold of your mum's makeup pouch. It's a mess, but you don't care because you're too busy getting pranked. That move from the creator was just as dirty as the surrounding level looks. You're getting quite frustrated at this point, but something inside of you doesn't want you to stop playing. You can't resist the Marine. You go again with practice mode on as a symbol of your newly found distrust. A wise decision, since after heading on through the creator's funtime scrambler, you happen upon a memory part which is extremely eager to kill you. You quickly realize you have been pranked once again as you almost immediately recognize where to go from the distinguished colors on the ground which has constructed a pattern in your brain and hijacking your dumbass without your consent. Like the submissive and breedable little weasel you are. Also, there's a real background now. It was the mid-2010s. It was barely a thing back then because the object limit was just 12.6 and putting one rectangle would take up approximately half the universe. These blocks are invisible when you attempt to focus on them, yet you somehow glide over everything without missing a beat of this really good song courtesy of the same guy who soundtracked Breakthrough. Until you hit a mirror portal and immediately die because your ever so frail, decrepit mind instantaneously combusted at the thought of encountering very slight change. You pick up your newly diasporized grey matter and sit for 9 consecutive hours and philosophize about why God thought it was necessary to invent kidney stones. So you go again once more, onwards into the blue marine, the great expanse of bullshit that no matter how irrational it seems, you still cannot pull yourself away from. That allure only strengthens when you finally reach the tunnels, a repetitively motioned wave that displays an amateurish checkerboard effect whose purpose is to hypnotize. It feels like it could go on forever. This seems like a bit too long for a section this ridiculously self-similar to last. As time goes on, you begin to doubt that there even is an end. Your distrust for the creator has mutated into you bordering on seriously believing that some guy genuinely might have invented man-made wormholes just for a single Geometry Dash level. You've been pranked once more. An end arrives, concluding the same way that it started. Just like the seas it's adjacently named after, its tide too went back in for its natural resolve. On your way to the conclusion, you notice a very special artifact, one of the very last of its kind in fact, a giant visually demanding sign thanking you for playing itself. These were a remnant from the early days of Geometry Dash. Creators would regularly end their levels with these structures of gratitude, erected with the purpose to thank the player for presumably taking the time to beat their level, and with the real purpose of extending the runtime as lazily as possible, demonstrating why calling some people creators is rather generous. This is a practice that has been extended to the present day by various CP grinding hacks, but in a radically altered form. The original going from fashion to fascist during the 1.9 era as everyone everywhere all at once realized that it was extremely irritating and politely removed the genitals of anyone insisting that they should do this for 95 seconds. Your mind sharpens its focus as it prepares for any last minute bushwhacking. There's a horizontal row of saws that catch your eye that are just barely out of your reach. You couldn't die to them even if you wanted to. You glide effortlessly over the clubstep monster's teeth like they're nothing. The floor itself is made out of spikes. It is clear by this point that you have become invulnerable. You have discovered Blue Marine's ultimate reward, mortality that has been reserved as merely a personal display of antiquity. You are simply unstoppable. There you go. Blue Marine is a level that was released on an unknown date somewhere inside January of 2015, since mutilated by obscurity to an audience of approximately -12 people. Its author, Chaos Airfryer, was a faceless Aussie man from Shadowland that had an overwhelmingly supportive fanbase of none. The Chaos AF YouTube channel was registered during the obscenely harsh, blistering conditions of the then previous Australian winter. Since then, he's been patiently working his way through understanding the then complicated 1.8 editor, picking up the basics and releasing projects here and there that would not go on to survive infant mortality. What you're looking at right now is the only footage on the internet that proves their existence, because RobTop loves wiping 85% of the Geometry Dash servers every 15 minutes because it helps him to maintain a continuously thunderous orgasm. As you can see, there are about 25 combined pixels in this whole video, and the audio was probably recorded onto a time-traveling hit clip straight from the twilight hours of 1999, but after running the film for a team of researchers from the University of Stanislav Petrov, we have officially confirmed that there might in fact be a level under there. His levels were fine! Certainly not something that was made to be thrown in the bin, but not exactly the specifically designed cream corn that would later sweep the Soul Train Awards. His distinctively chaotic style would fall into the category later identified by scholars as raw as fuck, a wild yet restrained approach to level making that he would apply to every work he would go on to construct. His efforts were rewarded with complete radio silence from all directions. Not even crickets. There couldn't be. The never-ending omnidirectional abyss that our man of the hour finds himself in demands conditions which devoured them for sustenance. All alone in the inhospitable void. During his stay in this no man's land, he found himself beating deadly clubstep, shattering Riot's newly established attempt record by well over 400%. Only a few short days after Riot's milestone. This is a legitimately massive achievement that is professionally put. Fucking wild. When I discovered this video, I immediately had to do a double take and send it to the one friend I have to see if it was real, because not a single person has ever mentioned this online anywhere. 0 search results. Not even on X videos where all the cool researchers go to discuss Chaos Africa Fish exists in a soundproof room whose door is rusted shut. No one can hear him, no matter how loud he screams. Nil is the individual who can let him free. Not without a miracle. But luckily for the story's main character, a miracle will indeed one day slither itself through the cracks. This is Rob Buck. He's a pretty interesting character. One time he made a deliciously 144p compilation of random crusty old 1.9 levels for the purpose of looking back on a great time in nostalgia. I mention this because it was August 2015 and 2.0 was yet to come out, which is like if I spent half an hour gleefully embellishing to you about how much better things were 54 minutes ago before I hit the record button, whilst making this almost certainly, probably, definitely, maybe emotionally resonant reflection. He took a step back, reset his mind to full capacity, and then uploaded this. Another fun fact, Rob Buck also just happens to be one of the most influential Geometry Dash players to ever live. Even though he's long since retired from the idea of even looking at a square ever again, back in the Stone Age, Rob Buck was a titanic figure. He was always in the foreground of the community no matter where you looked. He was an extremely active creator, always in the comments about levels on every possible platform. On the rack 24/7 with the singular goal of spreading his delicious creating grease on all corners of God's green flat earth. He wanted everyone to know that he's gonna see their levels and there's nothing you can do to stop him. He's gonna get your level featured and give you a nice comment and you're gonna like it, you nasty little slut. Not even the impenetrable everlasting filaments of a lonely abyss could hold back the clusters of growth plasma that creates to form the entity that is Rob Buck. This man is a bored god, and he can do whatever the fuck he wants. He wants to play your level, and nothing you or anyone else can say or do will stop him. Alright Squirt, here comes the big man. Show him what you got. Rob gives the level a run through. He witnesses all of its roughness and unapologetic personality on full display. As uninviting as the level may be, Rob sees past it all. What he instead sees is the warm, organic moisture that is contained within the confines of these digital walls. From years of experience on making levels that look like this, he knows the true beauty that lives within jank. He loves it. The walls of the abyss they now share start to violently crumble. He goes directly to RobTop with the purpose of giving this level the highest recognition the time period had to offer. Chaos wakes up from his deep slumber to notice that he's finally been acknowledged. Thanks to everyone's second favourite Rob, Blue Marine has now been featured. He looks around to see that the void has receded into nothingness. His eyes do in fact not deceive him. It's all over. He's free. February 74th, 2015. This episode's masterpiece makes its debut on the biggest geometrical marketplace of its time, but before I go over that, it's best that we absorb some context. The addition of the higher courts is a relatively recent thing. For the longest time, getting your level featured was the highest honor your level could receive, apart from the 5 guys that RobTop showcased himself on his YouTube channel, but those are so rare that they basically don't exist. Recognizing this, in theory, Blue Marine is a surefire smash hit on the Billboard charts, and Chaos can rest easy from here on out, but unfortunately it's not that simple. Even though Blue Marine is indeed featured, Chaos still has to nail Munch over where it gets put inside it. For those of you not in the know, when levels get through the enormous barrier of being recognized by the big man, they get placed in an order distributing them all in one big list closer or further away from the first. This spectrum of tiers within tiers makes the difference between $1 million success and 1,000 download obscurity, and for the most part it's completely arbitrary and based on whether or not Rob stubbed his toe before playing it or not. But luckily for our star of the show, he's got a helping hand pushing for his success. Old Buckley really wants to see this all succeed. After all, if not for him discovering it by freak chance, no one would even know what the hell a Blue Marine is. His deeply personal connection to the level makes him want to see it go far that much more. So eventually, either through English or interpretive telepathical tribal dance, convinces the big guy to place it near the very top. Its newfound generously high placement from the two Robs making it only inevitable that someone finds it. During an unrecorded date since expunged from history, an important figure stumbles upon the level in the heart of the featured section. At this point, the level has a respectable 8,000 downloads. 2015's edition of the Geometry Dash reigning overlord of the solar system, Riot, decided on saving it in the warm embrace of his greasy belly folds for 5 months later when he decided that its wave tunnel looked flashy enough for a good YouTube thumbnail, and then spread it to his audience of nearly 100,000 strong, many of which took it upon themselves to indulge in the violent novelties of an, at the time, very challenging level, especially for the peasants inside Riot's fanbase who seems to instantly die from liver failure the moment they enter a wave portal. This is because I barbarically and forcibly poisoned them all with several liters of methanol. Taking a wormhole into October that year, Blue Marine has been slowly but surely finding its way around the room, being transferred from person to person. Someone would showcase the level, causing someone in the audience to inform another showcaser of its existence. Since Riot's video, the level gained another 10,000 downloads to reach an impressive 50,000. 2016, the times bring us 2.0 and a massive new wave of players just foaming at the mouth to stick their stinky fingers in anything powerful enough to handle their gargantuan stench. The landscape is so drenched in slop that the world is now divided into two sections that segment at the 260.82015, which looking that number up on the servers finds you nothing because I didn't plan this segment in advance of writing that number down, and also because I didn't invent calendars. That title belongs to a mysterious Australian creator now experiencing the euphoric feeling of having their artistic voice finally being heard. After many months of crawling through broken glass pussy first, divine intervention gave him a tenable ticket to the top. Blue Marine was an albatross in its own right, the one thing preventing him from permanently chilling in obscurity. It fit perfectly into the revision zeitgeist, which would regularly be an insult to anything that was not named Blue Marine, a level that was accidentally forged with the exact minimum amount of objects required to cultivate a fucking shitshow. Its awkwardly dominant energy far surpassed anything from this new era, and the people were once again intrigued by the goods on display. Highly esteemed and universally beloved Geometry Dash level critic Guitar Hero Styles called it El Swagapino Nivel, which probably means something.
What the fuck?
Jumping forth for the fourth time to the 1 year anniversary of the level, it finally eclipses the threshold of 10,000 likes. Lucky bastard. I'm addicted to Minesweeper. The game is from the first Pleistocene epic, and it's like crack. I want to stop playing it, yet day after day, I just keep coming back. Minesweeper is a game that can be learned in 10 seconds. You see these numbers and you immediately know that this is a racing game. It was made with a budget of about $4 and was whipped up by some bored guy who needed to kill time while waiting for the toaster to finish heating up his Pop-Tarts. It may look intimidating, but once you earnestly engage with what's around you, you'll find one of the most timeless puzzle games ever made. This thing was made in 1983 and 1990 simultaneously, back when it was normal to make a puzzle game where just guessing which thing was gonna kill you won't get you thrown in prison. It absolutely reeks of the era it was made in, yet that just somehow makes it better. It has rarely ever required any kind of updating, because if you don't have this stupid shit, you don't have Minesweeper. This 13 kilobyte file holds the secrets to immortality, the dated longevity required to silently hold steady in everyone's memory after decades. 40 years pass as 40 years does. 2 generations. After all of that, it's still here. And the reason why can be found in one of the only pieces of media who has rivaled it ever since. I've been writing about levels in some form for the past 9 years, and to this day, Blue Marine has been the only one that has truly stumped me. After years and years of thinking about these, I've completely and totally lost to a 1 minute level made in 20 seconds out of a bunch of used pipe cleaners. For the past 29 months, I've come back to this level. During that time, every 3 weeks or so, I would routinely think deeply about Blue Marine and try to put on paper what made it different. But every time, I would only come out of the attempt more confused than before. Only recently, though, I've realized why I was playing this losing game to begin with, and why I will never win. Most levels have at least a few patterns or ideas to point out as to why you like or dislike them, but we're dealing with something that has no such thing. It doesn't know what that is. Then I realized through all these comments, no one else has described what they think about the level either. There's no point in attempting to engage a mental stranglehold into something that defies intellectualizing. What we see in front of us today is a type of impassable barrier that we're not often confronted with. It's happy.
What's the time?
Often on this channel, you'll see me very frequently explicitly reference the concept of a CP grinder. This is a lovingly given nickname to Geometry Dash level creators who churn out mediocre formulaic slop in order to obtain the lucrative social capital that comes from constantly releasing seemingly high quality things from the point of view of a robot with no brain that only knows cold hard numbers. It's a derogatory term, and that's the point. Us pond scum came up with it to express our disgust with the reality of someone possibly prioritizing ends over means of artistic value. That's why most CP grinders grinders get extremely upset if you call them CP grinders. Mirrors are scary, and CP grinders are defined by the crushing anaphylactic reaction they receive whenever they are confronted with the idea of self-awareness. There is a very particular thing they often say when people get frustrated at what they do. They say that they quote-unquote made it for fun. Anyone who dares to discuss the idea of low-quality creators in a critical way is bound to hear this a minimum of 58 million times, and there's good reason for that. It's about as simple and bulletproof of a defense you can give to the actions of a CP grinder. Disputing this claim takes a lot of critical thinking and words, and the Robot Chief comment section cannot fit this, so it's frankly just not worth debating for most people because it's a complete non sequitur. Saying they do it for fun is obviously partially true, but that's not what anyone's arguing against. That's what people who have 150 creator points and make 15 levels a day want people to waste their time arguing against. It's like when you tell your 55-year-old aunt about how you learned evolution in science class today and she proceeds to angrily respond with a sentence, "You can't get snake eggs from chicken eggs." It's so obviously correct out of context that nobody bothers dealing with it, so to this day you'll hear this everywhere applied to everything. Not even just something as trivial as the existence of Rob Top Please Give Me Creator Points Volume 17. If you look at anything any amount of people perceive as a bad idea, you're almost guaranteed to see Old Reliable at least once thrown in there for good measure. In this instance, this is an essentially meaningless lie that they tell themselves and everyone else to mask what they really want. When they say they don't want the creator points, they're both right and wrong on both extremes. They are correct that they don't make it for the material reward at the end, that is truly honest, but they are being facetious. Nobody really wants these stupid gardening tools, but it's not about that. It was never about that. What they really want is community. They want people to see the stuff they made, and more importantly, other people to recognize their relatably pathetic existence. They want another human being to connect with, and the lazy levels are just them trying to min-max this process. A universally familiar goal achieved in a universally sad way. It's definitely a cynical way of going about it, far from the fun that they tell themselves they're getting. But it was never about fun, was it? This is about joy as an act of resistance. This is fun as work, not for the process itself, but the temporary comfort that the process reaps. Pure, distilled joy is much harder to come by than that. It's nearly impossible to intentionally cultivate, especially inside a piece of media which requires blood, sweat, and tears. The things that you know as fun are almost certainly just a front that makes an illusion of what fun really is, because fun is something that cannot be found in the hyper-reality dungeon that holds us all captive. We eat, sleep, and die here, days blended together, defined by our unknowing overindulgence of communications that only benefit those who wish for a more miserable existence. As you almost have certainly picked up on by now, I am projecting really fucking hard. I'm describing myself, but just hear me out for a second.
You know, when people watch a YouTube video, they want to see something. They want to see something bombastic and that really captures their attention. You know, but they're not going to get that.
During the autumn of 2022, my brain began to shift into an amorphous alien slush that I would soon come to know as a cheeky bit of the sads, which can be shortened to "oh fuck" for convenience. This is a cocktail that you, watching, can make yourself at home. All you need is one major depressive disorder categorized severe, a generously helped serving of generalized anxiety disorder categorized severe, moderate to severe, 3 tablespoons of undiagnosed autism, and a pinch of obsessive compulsive disorder for flavor. I have been taking this lovely drink every morning, noon, and night since approximately when I made this video. A coincidence? I'm sure. I strongly recommend it to those who enjoy watching everyone you've ever known or loved be terrified of your presence for reasons that you no longer have the ability to comprehend. Or alternatively, for those who wish to enjoy the company of the audio recordings that hide behind this here elephant for upwards of 16 hours a day, preferably face down on the floor to maximize nasal discomfort. The large quantities of citrulline I inhale every 15 minutes prohibits me from consuming alcohol, but when it comes to the stupid metaphorical drink I just made up, I might as well be drunker than 15 stepdads put together. Since mum's knives cannot cut Swiss cheese, let alone subsurface flesh, I have no choice but to deal with being alive and not a mass of styrofoam. Lucky bastards. The main prescribed cure for "oh fuck" is known as Emotion by Carly Rae Jepsen, but the doctors don't know about that one. So the most commonly prescribed treatment is known as the New Zealand Public Health System's budget was cut for the 100th time this week, so you should probably think about shutting the fuck up and start lying lying to yourself that you could indeed be happy if you really wanted to. Much like how I could have sex with another human being if I wanted to, I just don't feel like it right now. Please believe me. Our good friend and pop psychology's bitch, Albert Camus, has been trying to reduce the line at the Empire State Observatory for decades, and now he's dead. Anyway, the idea of battling absurdity with thugging it out and getting out of the death line despite God, the Devil, and Bob has been one that makes one of the coldest hardcore hip-hop tracks ever made, but is one that simply cannot be anything more than a waterlogged Peppa Pig band-aid to someone who has sunk so many subtextual pints over the years that they've completely forgotten what it feels like to even be merely a corpse dressed as a human being. As hard as this truth is to face, when you finally reach rock bottom, you're all alone in the abyss. For the past couple years, I've been chained to this tomb. Exhaustion from various sources always leaves me back here. My point of being rubber banded back to my monitor really extends beyond a few meters. Once again, returning to the role of a house pest that you're obligated to feed but can't get rid of because doing so will lead to them quickly becoming institutionalized to death. Only preoccupied by the crippling overindulgences of hyperreality that takes the form of the internet, which has now become a dystopian husk of what it once was. A universally compulsory opioid relegated to becoming just another tool of the worst people on the planet to slowly push everyone into becoming good little zombies, who in this case may also compose excruciatingly melodramatic tapestries that masquerade as meaningful art that pitifully fail to distract anyone from their extremely pathetic existence that should have been put out years ago but hasn't gotten around to it yet, because the only thing scarier than not escaping eternal torture is genuine positive change. Or alternatively, your mum. That's your joke for this video. Remember when this channel was about comedy? Yeah, that's what I thought. Transitionally, it's been a good year and a half since my brain started forgetting how to register time properly. All it knows anymore is the distant past, distant future, and the monotonous present, staring out of the window at this fence, teasing me of the life that could have been. Who cares about the dog shit lying on the footpath that will fry your feet upon contact from absorbing heat from the sun? None of that matters. None of this was ever real. My fucking back hurts. As painful as it is to admit, our vices that we seek for comfort only serve to shackle ourselves further to our chairs. But pain in exchange for being miserable. A quick glance at the outdoors will quickly make you realize that being here is much better than being here. It has never been a beautiful day to stay inside.
I want to kill myself, but I'm too much of a coward.
Hamilton is the fourth biggest city in New Zealand, and the second largest concrete wasteland. For my entire life, I have either lived 15 minutes away or right in the heart of its crappiness. I've come in and out of this town every few days for almost 2 decades now, and not once have I considered it interesting. There's a decent amount of poverty, but it's not a shithole. There's some nice looking areas, sure, but only if you don't zoom out. It's in a constant flux of both construction and deconstruction that ends in small, quiet changes, but still somehow finds itself a host of deafening signs of life everywhere you look. By all means, it's an ordinary place that does not demand a visit from the gods above. Yet, somehow, This town of no importance holds my favorite place ever. The Hamilton Gardens is a collection of exactly 28 botanical gardens of a surprisingly beautiful variety. Since forever, this place has contained arrangements of floral decorum that are by no means stunning, but its scrappiness is nonetheless effortlessly charming, enough to make you forget that it required unknown but certainly large piles of donation money to become realized. I would love to talk for the next 54 minutes about each and every one, and how the big cheer in the surrealist zone was indeed very necessary, but I'm gonna cut straight to the best one. For the best singular location, you can take 7 left turns from the entrance to stumble upon the Japanese Garden of Contemplation. This lake, man, nothing short of perfection. However, that has never been the one that has interested me the most. For that, you have to look east. The Chinese Scholar's Garden is the type of place where I would want to be forever inside of. Until I say otherwise, I want my body to be buried here when I die. To find it, as well as my future corpse, all you need is $2 and a fondness for water. It's nothing extraordinary, just a few bridges and a lake with a cute little bamboo forest to tie everything over. But over the last decade or so, I've caught myself coming here again and again. It's been about 3 years now since I've lost the ability to relax. But without this garden, peace would be relegated to just a burning memory. Standing on the extremely red pavilion, looking down at the blue below from elevation, I find the distilled purity that I've long ago lost. Looking below at the Waikato River reveals a natural source of life that is more vital towards humanity than it would ever know. Despite it single-handedly creating what we know as Aotearoa as it exists, I wouldn't recommend jumping into it myself, as you are probably going to be extremely dead, and I want to use the idea first. But if you did, you would probably have to wait a very long time to get out. Floating on through well over 400 kilometers of both the most refreshing and the most diarrhea-inducing water the country has to offer. Not until you reach here, the Blue Marine. This water is salty, you can't drink it. It probably won't give you diarrhea either, but it's going to actively try to reject all mammalian life it possibly can from consuming it. However, that doesn't stop about 300,000 a year from taking part in the unending bliss that comes from doing so. The joy is impossible for you to experience in a way that makes any sense, yet all over the world, they go again. Despite its harsh architecture, its weird colors, despite all that makes sense, they go again. For reasons that no one no longer understands, they go again. They don't need to understand what brings us all here, because we are all here. We go again. 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 We go again.